Welcome to Chaos Sports. This is our first podcast. I'm here with Greg Palmer and Robert Lowe. We're going to talk about some football.
The Greg.
My name is Chris Price. Once again, this is our first podcast. We're going to talk about three big games this week with Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Miami, and also the Notre Dame, Michigan game. So we'll jump right into it. Cut that off. Sound guy. I promise the podcast and the blogs are going to get better as we go on. We're kind of learning as we go. But let's go ahead and jump into it. What do you guys think about the Georgia-South Carolina game? That's
Sorry,
way
guys.
to put it.
Sorry, guys. I'm the sound guy, and things sometimes you just gotta go. When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Well, I think that the South Carolina-Georgia game, historically have been pretty good games, except last year. Pretty much a blowout, South Carolina. But they usually pretty good close games. But this year, you got Aaron Murray coming back for his senior year. He's talked a lot of stuff about coming back, winning the national championship, talking about being 5 yards away. Well, they put themselves in a hole right off the bat with that loss at Clemson. Him turning the ball over again twice, pick and an interception, or pick and a fumble. I think Clowney and them boys are going to be ready to go.
What do you think about Clowney?
I hope so.
What do you think about Clowney? I think
he's slow.
Overrated.
The game against North Carolina, you would think that, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe taking it easy. Them able to win a game without him pretty much going full strength. Could be out of shape, it's a long...
Keep a guy on the sideline for CPR.
Yeah. But I think he's still a top-notch college football player and definitely a top 10 draft pick. Number one at this time, probably not, but it's early in the football season. It's a lot to be proven.
So Georgia, South Carolina, what is what's going to be the X factor? What's the X factor?
For Georgia, can the offensive line protect Murray in pass situations? And can they establish a run game, unlike last year where they will hold, Marshall and Gurley will hold to a combined 74 rushing yards?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Todd Gurley and Keith Marshall, that's the key to this game. They can put up with a lot of yards. They can win the game.
We have a winner. We have a winner.
But one thing, too, to remember is Malcolm Mitchell will not be playing in this game. They're a big play threat down the field.
Well, that's why they got to rely so much on the running back.
Well, they were unable to do that last year.
Who's Aaron Murray going to pass to?
I'm saying that's why South Carolina, if they're able to stop the run without having extra people in the defenders in the block or in the box, then it's going to be tough for Georgia to score.
Is it now?
It is.
See, I think that I don't think Georgia's going to have any problem scoring on South Carolina. I think the running backs there are strong. I think that South Carolina's defensive line is not all that it's cracked up, and we saw little traces of that from a very inept North Carolina offense, moving the ball pretty well. And I think when they play a traditionally strong offensive line and great running backs, I think that Georgia's going to really expose some of the key weaknesses in South Carolina's defense, and I think they'll score.
One thing to keep in mind is Victor Hampton for South Carolina. He's going to play, but he's not going to start. He's their best coverage man in the secondary, and concussion issues. So he got.
Well, he's either got a concussion or he doesn't.
Well, he got last week in the North Carolina game. He got hit pretty hard.
He's the best. Why is he not starting?
That's what I can understand. The coaches said that he's going to play, but not start. I never understood. If you're healthy enough to play, you're healthy enough to start. But
I agree. I think it's all smoke and mirrors, my man. I don't think that there's any concussion issues. If they were nervous enough because of a head injury not to start him, then he would not be playing at all.
Also, one other thing is I would take the old head bar coach.
What?
Come again?
The old ball coach.
The old ball coach.
Over Mark Richt any day. I think Mark Richt is
No.
soft. Soft.
No.
Doesn't know how to get his team up for big games, and we've seen time and time after again.
I will say that too. I like Mark Richt. He's the kind of guy that you want. If you got a son, that's the kind of guy that you want your son to play for. But I think if they lose this game to South Carolina, he's on the hot seat.
Okay, let me ask you this. That's a hot topic. That's a hot topic around here.
That's what I'm saying.
But who would you replace him with?
I agree with it.
Wait, okay, let's say they do get rid of Mark Richt.
Two straight losses.
Who would you place him with? That's the hard thing.
Let's not waste airspace by talking about something that is so far away from happening. Mark Richt has made 2 straight SEC championship games. He's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I mean, I agree with that.
He might be able to get on the hot seat if he loses to South Carolina, starts the season 0-2. He did that 2 years ago, came back and played for the SEC.
I agree, but I do. One person who definitely needs to be in the hot seat is Mike Bobo, and I'm sure all Georgia fans will agree with me. Mike Bobo's play calling is pretty predictable and terrific.
Well, Mike Bobo also has probably withstand the hottest seat I think I've ever seen. His rear end is probably scorched by now because the seat's been hot under him for a long time. But for some reason, he still stays there. So, who you got, Greg, in the game? Who you picking?
You know what? I'm gonna go South Carolina. You know, can I see Georgia win this game? Definitely, the rivalry game. You know, anything can happen. But on paper, the matchups on paper, you got to go with South Carolina. In a close game.
That's not what you picked before the game. I mean, before we started talking.
This is America, and I'm free to
all
change
of a sudden,
my mind.
Oh, you're a flip-flop.
I'm not a flip-flop.
Where's my flip-flop sound? If I could find my flip-flop sound, I would.
I'll be honest with you. I am going back and forth.
Track on there?
I am going back and forth, but I'm going to, on record, I'm going to say South Carolina 28-24.
On the record.
On the record, 28-24 South Carolina.
28-24 South Carolina. What about you there, Mr. Chris? What do you think?
I think Georgia's going to get it done. I think it's going to be about 35-28.
Yes, I would have to agree. Georgia is going to win this game. I at least seeing it being a two-score game, probably a two-touchdown game, something around 34-20. That's where I'm going with that game. I think that Georgia's going to pull away in the second half as South Carolina's defensive line.
All right, so what about this game with Miami and Florida? We got a Miami fan and Florida fan. 12 o'clock Saturday at Miami. Who's going to win?
I'll let you start, Greg. I mean, you seem to be the major Florida Gator fan in the house, and I just don't think anybody really appreciates the intelligence of a Florida fan, and so I just want to let you give it a shot to prove us all wrong about the Florida Gators.
Well, thank you, my colleague, Mr. Stella. But we're going to run the ball. That's what we do best.
Really? You're going to run the ball?
We're going to run the ball.
How many times?
About 35 times.
Wow.
But I believe that Driscoll is going to be able to throw the ball downfield, because if he's not able to, it's going to be a very long season. Our defense will always keep us in the game, and I look for nothing to be different in that aspect. I think it'll be close all game long. Hopefully, I get a pick six, fumble recovery.
Effects, man.
I'm sorry. I'm screaming at the insanity of my colleague here. It's crazy.
Well,
that makes me want to cry. It really does.
I mean, you can't argue that the defense will keep us in the game and have opportunities late to win.
Well, the defense will be good. Before I talk, I just want to get your opinion on probably one of the most electrifying players in college football, Duke Johnson. Tell me a little bit about what you think Duke Johnson is going to do in this game.
To be honest, I think he gets 100 yards rushing. I think.
Okay. And so, what do you see unfolding? Well, before we.
I tell you that. I tell you I say him 125 all-purpose yards.
125 all-purpose.
Yeah, not including kickoff and punts if he does that. But I'm talking about offense.
That's all-purpose.
Well, okay, offense on the offense. I think he gets between receiving in the back or running the ball, and then maybe some screens and stuff. I think about 125 to 150 all-purpose.
He did
yards.
throw a touchdown pass.
Well, that's not going to happen. Florida's defense is too quick, too smart, too talented.
It's not going to happen?
Not going to happen.
Okay. I appreciate that observation there that you made, however poor it may be. The Florida Gators, they're obviously, I think probably depth-wise, a slightly better team, more talented than the Miami Hurricanes are. But I think that the Miami Hurricanes are coached better, and I think that they're coached to win. I think they have more heart. And I think the starting 22 for Miami, specifically the starting 11 on offense, is probably heads and shoulders better than the starting 11 on offense for the Florida Gators. I think that you've got Stephen Morris, who is a proven senior quarterback that can throw the ball. You have Coley, who is our new wide receiver, and freshman who is absolutely just explosive. And then you've got Duke Johnson, who we all know, as much as you didn't want to give him respect, is one of the top three best college football athletes in the country. And I think that he's just proven that time and time again. And I just think that he's going to get his yards. He's going to make plays. The biggest question that it really comes down to, and you touched on it, is the Miami's offense against Florida's defense. That's going to be the whole game. Florida is going to have trouble scoring the ball. Miami's going to have trouble stopping. But at the end of the day, the game's going to come down to, can Miami's very strong and explosive offense score on Florida's pretty stout defense? And at the end of the day, I think that they do. But before I give my prediction, let's go back. What do you think?
Well, I agree. I mean, Duke Johnson is definitely an electrifying player. But the top three athletes, I don't know, man. You got Sammy Watkins and Clemson. You got Marcus Mariota and DeAndre Thompson out in Oregon. Those two players right there are just like lightning fast. Like I think just as fast.
Well, I
as
think
Duke.
that the Oregon, I think that's just has a lot to do with the scheme that they play. Sammy Watkins, I would put maybe a little bit ahead of Duke.
I mean, and also the one person you really don't want to talk about, the beast from the West in the SEC, Johnny Manziel. That boy right there.
What are you talking about him for?
He's not an athlete.
He's not even
he's
in the
an
Miami,
athlete,
Florida discussion.
But it's according to Duke Johnson. But back to the game. I agree. Florida have not proven that we can score consistently. Again, going against a bad defense, maybe those can change. But Florida's defense, I think, can stop Miami's offense. Stop and limited. Let me say limited. I think Florida probably give up 17 points. I think that's a fair assumption.
Okay, 17 points. Okay.
I'm going to throw my 2 cents in there. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
Okay.
Nothing too high. I think it's going to be about 24-17. Waiting for it. We'll go on the side of Miami.
Okay.
I think Duke Johnson is going to get 1 to 2 touchdowns. I think Stephen Moore, let's say it right, is it Stephen or Steve? Stephen Moore. He's going to get maybe 1 in the air. Now, wasn't too happy when we were watching the game last weekend with Miami. He throws a pick, so hopefully he can start a streak over, go without an interception in this game, but the defense is going to be strong for Florida. I just don't see Florida's offense, even though Miami doesn't have a strength at defense, their offense is much better than their defense is. I just don't see Florida being one of those teams that can go out there and score every possession. They're going to do 4 and out or 3 and outs and punt the ball every now and then. So I only give them about 17 points.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're, well, at least I think you're partially right. I think it will be a low-scoring game on the side of the Florida Gators. I just don't think, I don't see them scoring very many points. I will say this, I do like to kind of joke and mess with my buddy here, but we all know that Miami's defense struggled tremendously last year. They were ranked 116th in the country, which is, just let's just say it is pathetic, and just no excuse for that in college football today. And my sound effects are malfunctioning right now. Otherwise, I would play
the
toilet flush. But I just think that that's terrible. So I do think that Florida will score, even though I joke that they would be low scoring. I think that they can get 17 points. Like Chris said, I think that they'll be fairly successful moving the ball. There was one thing that Miami's defense showed signs of last year, and I think that they've improved at it this year, which is scoring defense. So I think that we'll see some yards on the part of Florida, probably more than they're accustomed to, because they're really pretty terrible on offense actually. But I think they'll get some yardage in this game, but they will struggle scoring the ball. And so at the end of the day, you do have this other guy that I brought up, which is Duke Johnson. We all know who he is, and I think that Duke Johnson will prove to be the man that is bad to the bone, and he'll do what he does best. He'll run through the tackles. He's going to knock some people down, score, and I just see Miami putting up at least 27 points with Florida being capped right around 14-17, which is really, over the last year, what they've proven is the most they can score anyway. So no matter how terrible the defense is that they're playing. So I see it being a 27-17 game in favor of the U.
Duke Johnson ain't about to run through nobody on that D-line. Maybe if he gets some open space.
He might run around them.
Yeah, Drew is a little bit optimistic. Those are some big boys on that D-line. Now, you can get Duke Johnson out in space, that
Well, we know what
create.
he does in space. I think that he's just underrated in what he does in the tackles. I think that he hits hard. He doesn't shy away from contact. I'm not saying he's going to knock any of the defensive linemen over. I'm just saying he's not going to shy away from running up the middle, right up the gut, and eventually he'll bust one loose.
All right. Well, moving on to the game of the week, Notre Dame, Michigan.
Oh, the game of
8
the week.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
ESPN Game Day is going to be there.
Oh, my goodness.
Once they're there, it's the game of the week.
Well, I'm sorry, we did not use the four-letter word on
There's a
this
four-letter word. Yeah.
because they're not paying us for advertisement.
The other out there, known as Michigan, playing the Notre Dame,
The U of M.
Fighting Irish. We'll let Chris start us off in this discussion since he's the resident Michigan fan here. And what do you think is going to happen, Chris?
I think Michigan's going to open up the floodgates. Brady Hoke's already made it clear that he's going for a Big Ten title this year. Maybe not even a national title, but he wants that Big Ten title. So, I mean, I think if Michigan, even if they were to struggle in the first half, going into the second half, he's going to open all the playbooks, go for broke, and try and beat the headlights off of these guys. So, I mean, looking at it, I'm trying to keep a good bias. I am a Michigan fan, but I do think Michigan's going to win this one. I think we're going to see the old Michigan way before the Rich Rodriguez era. But I think we're going to see, the past few years, Michigan has had a close race with Notre Dame. It's been a 4-point game for 3 of them, and then 7 points last year. I think we're going to go back to where it's a more wide-open game.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you have faith in your secondary? Because Notre Dame do have some pretty good wide receivers.
They do, but I have faith that we're going to get pressure on Tommy Rees. I don't think Tommy Rees is going to do like he did at Temple. The biggest weakness for Notre Dame is the offensive line, and one of our biggest strengths is the defensive line. So Michigan's going to be able to rush through there. I just don't think the offensive line is going to be able to handle them. I think Tommy Rees is going to be under a lot of pressure to get rid of the ball. So it's going to force them to either run, which they are good at. They do have some good running backs as well. And the current running back is kind of like the Armando Allen that they used to have. He's not the fastest. He's not the biggest guy, but he's got a lot of motivation and a lot of ambition to get down the downhill running, I guess you would say.
Well, we'll give you. Well, if you do pressure the quarterback, you ain't got to
between the tackles and get some yardage.
You ain't got Evan Golston back there that can take off, so that's one good thing that y'all got to do.
It is.
You pressure Tommy Rees, he can maybe run, but
I'm looking. I mean, the Brady Hoke teams, they're not the same as the Rich Rod teams. So I mean, you look at last year, Denard Robinson, a great player for Michigan, one of the Michigan legends already, just because of what he was able to do at the quarterback position by running and throwing. But he wasn't a great thrower. He wasn't accurate. Threw a lot of interceptions, and I mean, you look at last year, a national championship team. A team that played for the national championship in the BCS. They only lost to them by 7 points, and they had 6 turnovers in that game. 5 of them interceptions.
Well, we can all pretty much agree Notre Dame should never have been playing against Alabama.
I agree with that, too. Notre Dame should have never been in that game. But just looking at that, I mean, Devin Gardner should not throw 5 interceptions. I don't see him doing that. He's a lot more accurate. He's a much better quarterback in the quarterback sense, being able to throw the ball. He's not going to run as well as Denard, but he doesn't have to. He's got 2 big offensive tackles with Schofield and Taylor Lewan. They're experienced. They're going to be in the draft this year. I expect Lewan to go at least in the first round. He's more of a Jake Long type. But, I mean, we should be able to see Devin Gardner have time, and if he has to, he may escape. But hopefully we'll have a pro-style offense going at it against this Notre Dame defense, which I do think the Notre Dame defense is pretty good. They're going to be experienced, but it's pretty much the same defense that faced Alabama last year. And we saw what happened in that game. So, I mean, they've only had 1 game in between that one and this one. And Michigan is moving more towards that pro-style offense. They're going to be running the ball. They're going to be throwing downfield with an accurate passer. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. You guys got any comments on it?
Yeah, I think that you're pretty much right. I think that Notre Dame is their defense is pretty strong. I mean, we really do need to see what the year brings for them on defense. I mean, on paper, they probably should be a little bit weaker at defense than they were last year, but I think that the experience that they got last year, I think is going to pay dividends.
You got to see what kind of leader they got too. I mean, Monte Te'o's gone.
Yeah. When you
That's
lose
a big leader.
When you lose him, I think that you've lost a lot back there, and they got to replace that. But the rest of that defense is pretty much intact. In fact, they picked up a great recruiting class on defense last year. I think it was a top 5, and they just who knows really at this point what it's going to bring. We'll find out a lot more about their defense this year. On the other hand, we know Michigan's offense is strong, improving by the day. It seems like I think that Michigan pulls this one out. I definitely don't agree with your thought that it's going to be a big lead or a big win. I think it's going to be a close game decided maybe in the last 2 or 3 possessions, and I give it to Michigan with a field goal advantage, probably in the 27-24 range.
Field goal ranges in Notre Dame and Michigan. You know what? I think I'm going to go against my 2 colleagues. I think I'm going to go with the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. I think that...
Can we get that boo?
I think they're going to go to Big House. I think they're going to hand Brady Hoke and the Michigan Wolverines their first loss at home under the new regime. I think it will be close. Probably a touchdown. I think Michigan will be driving late in the 4th. They're going to have a costly turnover, and I think that's going to do them in.
I think Michigan's going to rate better on every aspect of the teams as far as the running backs, the quarterbacks, offensive line, defensive line, secondary. The main concern, like you were mentioning, is going to be the wide receiving corps. I think that's where Notre Dame is going to have their strength, and that is where Michigan's weakness is. But I think Devin Gardner is going to use Devin Funchess and also Drew Delio. We saw him last weekend. I showed you.
Delio.
Yeah, Delio. He's a real Delio. He's a Wes Welker type. But anyways, I see this one, as long as he can utilize those guys along with Jeremy Gallen to get their running game going, I say it's going to be 38-17 under the lights at the big
38-17.
38-17.
Wow. So just to recap all of our picks for the three games this week that we've decided to cover. For the Miami-Florida game, we had myself and Chris picking Miami with Greg going Florida. And then in the South Carolina-Georgia game, we had myself and Chris going Georgia, Greg going South Carolina. And in the Michigan-Notre Dame game, we had myself and Chris going Michigan, and Greg going with Notre Dame.
I will be
really
3-0.
And so, as you guys can see from our very first podcast here, that we do have a very unique individual that's joining us on a regular weekly basis, and keep coming back because he'll be here, and
he's bound to say something.
And you just never know what's gonna come up in these conversations. So
Greg says the darndest things.
Greg says that's what we named this podcast. Greg says the darndest things about sports. So I think that unless anybody else has anything else, that should probably wrap it up.
That should be it.
One thing to look out. It's one game that's off a lot of people's radar.
I do want to talk about something.
Oh.
A little extra credit.
Okay.
Greg, let's get your opinion on the Johnny Manziel.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons I kind of cut you off earlier. I did want to talk about that towards the end.
I think Johnny Manziel is a heck of a college quarterback. College. I think his ability to run and throw is unique. He's got wide receivers out there.
Unique, not this day and age.
Well, yes, but just the way he
probably unique for somebody to be able to throw the ball now.
That's true, but just the way last year and this year he comes in for a quarter. He's 6 out of 9, 34 yards. 6 out of 9, 78 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then he gets yanked for being a knucklehead.
Being a jerk.
But I mean, if you can not like his off the field antics and now on the field antics, but you can't deny that he's a winner and he just wins.
He just wins.
I mean, he'll win you games. Like he'll.
I don't know, man. The last guy we said that just wins games was Tim Tebow, and he won 2 championships. And thus far, Johnny Manziel hasn't shown that Texas A&M is going to do that.
He has the offensive weapons. I'm just not sold on it. They will beat Alabama in 2 weeks.
I'll have to say.
What?
I will have to say
in 2 weeks.
No, next week. Well, not next week.
I'm going to need you to stop interrupting me. I think that Johnny Manziel is going to potentially go down in history as one of the biggest wasted talents of all time if he keeps up the way that he's going. He does have all the talent in the world. He's a great football player. Much to my dismay, it's really kind of irritating because of his attitude, the way that he acts, that he ends up being so successful on the field. But I do dislike the way he's going and the way he's heading. I hope that he straightens out and calms down. He may have to get humbled a little bit. Maybe one of them Alabama linebackers will knock him out for a quarter or so and give him some humility. But I think if he could learn a little bit of humility, he potentially has all the necessary tools to take it to the next level. But he does need to work on that attitude in a big play.
Guy I feel sorry for is Coach Kevin Sumlin. Look, I think Manziel is just a jerk. I think he's got a lot of growing up to do. I think he's a good football player. I mean, there's no denying that. You can't deny what he's done on the field. But the guy, like you said, hasn't won a championship. All he's done is win a few games. Didn't even go to the conference championship. So until he can win a conference championship or a national championship, he needs to take a back seat. And then you look at the way he's isolating himself. I mean, the Heisman voters, if he wants to win another Heisman, I mean, he may not care now that he's got one, but if he wants to win another one, these are the guys that are looking at him and going, we're not going to vote for you again because you don't uphold the integrity of the Heisman. I mean, they're already aggravated with him, but like I said, the guy I feel sorry for, Kevin Sumlin. I mean, this is a guy who was getting calls from NFL teams a year ago. He's trying to do something at Texas A&M him. He's not going to be able to yank the kid out of the game, especially if they're playing Alabama. I mean, he can say that he yanked him out and that was the end of it during that game against Rice, but when you get into a game against Alabama or LSU, somebody in the West, you're not going to be able to just take him out in the third or fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And be able to deal with the boosters on Sunday.
That's true, but a part of me believes that I think it was just a one-game thing. Like, I think having all
he did the money thing all
I think,
last year.
like I said, I think...
But now it has a different context because he just had
after all the offseason, he has to hear this. I think it's just the football fears where just where he can let loose. I think he just needed to get it out, and I think it won't be an issue going forward because once you get an SEC play, he understands. Penalty like that can cost the game. You'll be in dogfights.
I don't think he does.
I really do.
Think he understands that.
I think he's immature. But I think he just needed to get it out and just do his little thing.
I think he's going to score on LSU or score on Alabama, and he's going to do a money sign and then get hit.
That'd be unwise, but
either with a flag or by an Alabama or LSU player.
I'm gonna give him the benefit of doubt.
But all right, guys.
Oh, and one other thing, one game to look out for, and it's off a lot of people's radar, is Western Kentucky and Bobby Petrino and Tennessee Volunteers. Bobby Petrino won an SEC. He knows what it's all about. He just coming off that win against Kentucky. Kentucky, it is what it is with Kentucky, but still, watch out. It could keep it close.
Are we talking about Western Kentucky and Tennessee right now?
He's talking about Western
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
So that wraps up our show here for the day, and we will see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
All right.